Hey guys, welcome back here to Intuitive Angling, and appreciate you guys swinging by the channel today to check the video out. And guys, today I'm going to give you a breakdown on exactly how I caught my fish yesterday to finish 5th place in the BFL tournament up at Truman Lake. Had 16 pounds in the tournament, finished in the top 5, and going to sort of run down how I caught the fish, and maybe it'll help you guys pick up something or catch some fish as a result of that. Also, guys, for get started, thank you very much, man, for everybody that's been subscribing here to Intuitive Angling lately. Really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed, guys, that's a good way to support the channel. We've only got like 30% of the people that watch my videos are actually subscribed. And by subscribing to the channel, liking the videos, hyping the videos, that really helps Intuitive Angling grow. So if you want to, if you're inclined to do that and want to help us grow, that's a good way to do it. And also, guys, thank you everybody that's been using all the links that I put in every video description to support the channel too. We really appreciate that. Okay, guys, let me give you a little rundown of how everything unfolded here. You may or may not have seen some of the videos I did earlier in the week, but I got to practice. The tournament was yesterday, which was Saturday. I got to practice last Monday for half a day, and then I was busy all week long. And I got to go up Thursday and practice a half a day on Thursday. So I had a half a day Monday and a half a day practice on Thursday. On Monday, I went up there, and I hadn't been on the lake since last year. And when I got up there, it's like, it just looked perfect for flipping. I mean, 3 or 4 foot of water in the bushes. Water was really stained up. Lots of bushes in the water. Post-spawn situation, it just was freaking perfect. And I went out, guys, and I was flipping there. I started out, I was flipping my 3/8 ounce Blaukat Throwback jig, and also I was flipping a variety of different soft plastics with my favorite sinker size for flipping that, which was a 3/16 and a 1/4 ounce sinker. I never had a bite all day long in half a day, and I could not believe it. It's just like, what the heck? This is like perfect. The flipping is my deal. This is my milieu. It's just like, I just couldn't believe it that I didn't get any bites on there. So I got thinking about it, and it's like I'd seen this situation happen before down at Grand Lake this time of year, where the water was flooded up into some of the willows and bushes, but the fish weren't up in them, and I'd catch them cranking and like dragging a football head jig. So on Thursday I went up there, and the first half of my half practice day, which was about 2 or 3 hours, I threw a big deep diving crankbait and a big worm, fishing out deeper out off the bank, fishing point ends and stuff like that, little drops, and never had a bite. And the water, I felt the water was a little too dirty for it, because the water's pretty stained up at Truman Lake right now. It's less than a foot of visibility. So I sort of wrote it off that it was a little bit too dirty for that. So I went back to flipping for the second half of the day, went up into a different part of the lake. I'm still, sort of down in the mid part. And I wound up catching one decent one, about a 3.5 pounder, and I had 3 or 4 other bites in the bushes that I set the hook on and lost them. They could have been non-keepers. It's not like I had them on and they were shaking the bush. I just had a bite and I set the hook and I felt something, they came off. So they could have been 12 inchers. So I didn't have anything going on. I wasn't confident on where I was at. I didn't, think I could win the tournament there. So I went back, and I didn't get a practice on Friday. I had a bunch of stuff going on. So I got thinking about it, and it's like, okay, let's analyze this. Number one, I know these fish are in the bushes because I couldn't catch them out deep cranking. They've got to be in the bushes. So it's got to be a combination of an area or a bait selection on there. So what I did is, the first thing I said, it's like, those fish, it's like, and I've seen this before, it's like I was using the lighter weights on there, and the bushes were really thick. I mean, really, really gnarly. And maybe they want a faster fall. So what I did is I rigged up a 3/4 ounce sinker on one rod, and then I put a heavy 5/8 ounce, my Blaukat Throwback jig, the 5/8 ounce, the heaviest model, on the other rig. I had two setups that I'm gonna show you here just in a second. And then I decided, it's like, okay, I've got to get into a completely different area of the lake. So I went on, I flip-flopped the area, I went completely different part of the lake, and I just, I said, I'm going to go practicing. So what I did is, I'm going to show you the two setups I had here. I'm going to show you then I'm going to explain to you how it sort of unfolded, how I had rigged on, or what I had rigged up. The first rod is I had Megabass Alkali's flipping stick, had my Blaukat black and blue throwback jig on, zoom, big Zoom Super Chunk, 25-pound test Seaguar and Vizx line, and this new Cast King ALTI bait cast reel. Guys, by the way, guys, this ALTI bait cast reel, you've heard me talking about it. This thing is freaking awesome. It's like next to impossible to backlash. I'll put this reel in the link in the description if you guys want to get one. And also I got that promo code Randy10. If you use it, you get an additional discount. But guys, you'll love this thing. This is a freaking awesome reel. But that was the first setup I had. The second setup I had, and this is what did most of the damage, it's had Megabass Levante flipping stick here, ALTI Cast King reel, and I got 40-pound test Seaguar Smackdown braided line on it. I hate to flip braid, but I'm gonna explain why. And this was my setup here. I had a 3/4 ounce sinker on a Zoom speed crawl here. Drops like a freaking rock like that. 3/4 ounce on this little bitty tiny bait like that. Drops super, super fast. Had on a 4/0 Gamakatsu straight shank flipping hook, Finesse, and colors I rotated several different colors, black and blue, June bug, green pumpkin, just little bitty speed crawl. And the reason I wanted this setup here is I wanted something that would fall like a freaking rock just through the water, just like boom, just like that. And you put a 3/4 ounce on this 40-pound braid here, and it falls just like a rock in there. So that's my setup. So I started out, I just ran up this area here, and I said, I'm just gonna pull up to something that looks good, and I'm gonna start working my way up the lake. So I pull up there, and right off the bat, I'm flipping bushes. It's pretty dark out, and there's some isolated bushes, and these bushes that I pulled up on, they're not like real big bushes. They're little sort of scrawny bushes. So I started pitching the jig and the speed crawl up to the edge of the bushes, and I caught a couple non-keepers, and I caught like 2 keepers the first 30 minutes. Decent fish, like 2.5 pounders, 2 chunks in there. Sun started getting up a little bit, and I started moving up the lake a little bit, and I'm working around some bushes there. And actually there was a dead tree in the water, and I was flipping the bushes, and all of a sudden I looked over to my right, and there's this dead tree in the water, standing pole timber, and I flipped over there to the pole timber and caught a nice one, about a 3-pounder. So now I've got 3 decent fish in the boat, and it's not even an hour in a day. So I know that I'm in the right area, and I know I've got the right bait. They want this fast fall, I'm in the right area. So my confidence is like through the roof at this point, because I know that I've gotten 3 good fish and 5 bites in 30 or 40 minutes. And you just don't do that if you're not in the right area. So what my plan was is this area where I put down at, I was just going to start. I didn't even want to get on the run up on plane. I just wanted to fish something that was good, and then idle up until I saw something else. And that's what I did. I fished everything that looked good, guys. If it was a row of bushes that looked good, I pull up on them. If there was one bush on a point, I'd pull up and fish it. If there was a lay down tree in the water, I'd pull up and fish it. And I spent most of the day just idling up the lake, fishing everything that looked good. And as the sun got up, I started moving more into the thicker bushes because it was getting bright, there wasn't much wind, it was getting hot, and these bushes were throwing some shade off. So I continued flipping the jig and the speed crawl. Speed crawl was the one that I used mainly. The jig I did, rotate it here and there, but I started flipping that speed crawl, and the 4th fish I caught was another nice one, about close to a 3-pounder on a big giant bush in the very, very heart of the bush. So now it's like, I don't know, it's probably an hour and a half into the day or an hour into the day, and I've got 2 over 3, and I've got 2 other keepers, and I'm getting bit by non-keepers. So everything's starting to flow, and my goal in this tournament is to get back up in the points for the regional championship on the BFL circuit, because I missed our last tournament at Table Rock. I fished that ultimate match fishing challenge at Table Rock, so I had to miss our BFL tournament at Table Rock. So I had some ground to make up to make the championship. So started working up, and I got on this one point, guys, and there was like some isolated bushes here and there, and I pitched in there and got a strike, and I set the hook, and it's a freaking big one. And fortunately, I get this fish to the top part of the bush, and the bush is just shaking like crazy, and the fish is just like thrashing around like that. It's a big one, thrashing around, and I have flipped enough to know when you see one when their head's thrashing around and they're not moving, that means your line is wrapped around a piece of a twig in there. And that's what happened. And when your line's wrapped around a piece of twig, there's no stretch whatsoever. And 9 times out of 10, a big fish will rip off. It'll pull off when it's doing that. So we got over there, and I had a co-angler, and my co-angler really helped me out. We got the net underneath the fish. He grabbed the fish for me. I was trying to position the boat, got the fish in the boat, and as soon as he got the fish over the side of the boat, the hook came out, and it was one almost 6 pounds, 5 3/4 probably, a big one. So now I got 16 pounds of fish in the boat, and we're not even 2 hours into the day. So I'm thinking, I'm going to win my second tournament in a row, because I won that solo series tournament 2 weeks ago up at Lake of the Ozarks. I got, fish are biting. There's some big ones in here. I got the bait figured out. I got the everything's figured out, and started picking away, started catching a few more fish, a few more keepers that, didn't help me out, barely helped me out, some non-keepers. And then I pull up, I got another bush. We had it about 2 hours later or something, flipped in there, got a bite, set the hook. That's a good one. It's probably one in the 4-pound range, give or take a few ounces. Good fish. And I got the fish out of the boat, and I had it on the braided line, on the 40-pound braid. So I'm fighting this fish, and I was just going to swing it over because it was coming to the boat, and it gets about that far out of the water and comes off. So it's like, and my partner was on the way to get the net. So if I'd have just waited, I got that one in there. So I'm like, God dang it, that would have pushed me up to 18 pounds right there. And it wasn't probably 3 or 4 bushes later, and I pitched in there again. I set the hook, and it's another big one. It felt just like that 6-pounder, and I could feel the thing just boom, boom, boom like that. And I'm on my way over to the bush, and it's coming up out of the bush, and then all of a sudden it's not coming, but I can still feel the line moving from the fish. I get over there, and it stops moving. I'm messing around with it, poking down there, get down there and poked my bait. It's on the bottom, and the fish came off. That was another big one. I've caught enough flipping fish to pretty accurately gauge the size of the fish. So this had to be another over 4, maybe bigger. And wound up, fishing around the rest of the day, caught a couple more, and then wound up the tournament with 16 pounds and finished 5th place. Happy with that. I'm not complaining at all. That's part of flipping bushes. Now, one of the things I want to explain to you guys a little bit about the specific equipment that I was using. A lot of you guys that watch my videos, you know that I hate flipping braid. I hate it. In this particular situation, the water was dirty. It was like you had this much water visibility, and the bushes were super thick, and I had a super, super heavy weight that was like dropping like a rock. So I felt, 9 situations out of 10, I'll use the 25 fluorocarbon. But I felt, since the water was dirty and the bait was falling so fast and the bushes were so thick, that I'd do better if I went to the braid. And that's what I did. 40-pound test, Seagar Smackdown. I'll link all this stuff, guys, in my Tackle Warehouse link. I'll link the baits I caught them in, the equipment, the line. And so, that's why I use the braid with that. And then as far as the position of the fish in there, one other thing on the colors, there's 2 primary colors. I had the black and blue jig, and I had the, anything like a black and blue or June bug or green pumpkin. If the water was a little bit cleaner, because the water would vary a couple inches in visibility, if it was a little bit cleaner, sometimes I went to the green pumpkin, and then the darker colors if it wasn't. But one of the things about that is, when you're flipping, you got to figure out how the fish are positioned in these bushes. And here's what happens with it. Fish move around in bushes. They reposition, they move around based upon times of the day and water clarities. Normally, if you have a lower light situation and you have some really dirty water like we did at Truman, those fish will not get into the heart of the bushes early or late in the day or on low light days. So that's why, I started out pitching and flipping around the thinner, sparser stuff. Once that sun gets up, though, even if you have dirty water, those fish do not want to be out in that edges if they have the thicker cover. And what they look for is the base of any type of a tree or bush, because the base of it actually an opening down there on the base. And if you look at any bush in the water, you'll be a lot of limbs off the side of it. And if they're sitting on the base, a lot of times they can move around on the bottom. Now these fish are sitting on the bottom of these bushes. Sometimes they will suspend, but most of the time in this tournament, they were sitting on the bottom. And when that heavy weight came down there through that middle, I think what happened is it hit the bottom so hard that if those fish were somehow positioned in and around those bushes, they would dart in there around that base and hit that thing. And a lot of times, and one of the reasons a lot of people don't catch fish flipping as good as other people is all about your cast. And sometimes in order to get to the base of this bush, it's like a Hail Mary cast. You're pitching and flipping back in there, and it's like if you get a bite, it's like there's no way I'm going to get a fish out of there. But like I always said, you got to get the bite before you have to worry about it. So I really worked hard to try to get to that base. And here's the thing about losing fish or not losing fish flipping. It's all about how the fish are hooked. If you have a good hook and you set the hook and you penetrate the barb of that hook into a hard part of the bass's mouth, I don't care what they get around, they're not coming off. The times that you lose the bass is when these fish are hooked like through the skin part of the mouth right here, or you're catching like just a piece of meat on the side of it. That's when those fish get off. So sometimes it's just how they bite the lure. You don't really know how the bait is positioned in the fish's mouth until they bite it. So that's why you lose a lot of fish flipping, because when they do get wrapped up, there's no give whatsoever, and they got a tremendous amount of leverage to tear that hook out of their mouth. And that's what happens. Usually they just tear the hook out of their mouth. That's how they come off. One piece of advice I'll give you on that, guys, is when you get a bite flipping like that, don't set the hook real soon. Hesitate a little bit. Let the fish have the bait before you set the hook, and that will really help you out. But anyway, guys, that's just how I broke it down. That's how I wound up going from sucking in practice to almost winning the tournament. Hope it helped you guys out, and we'll talk later.